Welcome to a meeting of the Town of Barnstable Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee. Today is May 22nd, 2023. This meeting is being recorded by the Town of Barnstable and will be broadcast on Channel 18 after the meeting has been concluded. The agenda is on today's town website. Our first business is to call the roll. So Chuck, if you are available.
I am, and I will. Lillian?
Here.
Hector?
I'm here.
Welcome,
Jackie?
Hector.
Thank you. We got our internet back.
Righty. Neil?
Yeah, Neil
Neil's
is here.
muted, but he's there.
Yes.
Sorry.
Chris?
Here.
Chuck is here, and I'll ask if Wendy is here, but I don't see her.
Chris is here.
I just don't see Wendy,
I don't see Wendy.
but we have a quorum, so we can begin.
Thank you very much. I see that Betty is here. Betty, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Nope, no comments. Thank you, Lillian.
Okay, jump in anytime. Okay, our topic for discussion this evening is a review and hopefully an approval of the operating budget for 24. And our chair for the subcommittee is Chuck. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Lillian. So we will go through what unfortunately was version 10. And hopefully no more semi versions. And we'll do like we've done in past meetings. Mark is kind enough to do screen sharing and editing for us, but we will ask each person responsible for a section to at least be prepared to answer questions. I'm not sure at this point if we need to march through it line by line again, but we'll welcome comments and final edits. The only major change from version 9 that I sent out, as I said, was Mark made a good comment about the revenue sources being a little light. So there is a new table as well as some supporting commentary that we'll go through. If we start on, well, I'll do this in order. On the cover page, any thoughts or comments? I think the links now are updated.
Looks good. Does
And we'll
anybody
have-
have any comments or changes? Okay,
We'll fill in the approved by when it's approved. I see Mark's been optimistic, so thank you, Mark. The contents, I think, has been reflected or now reflects the existing pages with the addition of the revenue section, which messed up the page numbering a little. And so we'll keep going to methodology and overview, which are pretty straightforward. The only thing that I would ask Mark is in the second to last paragraph under overview that starts the town budgets. I want to make sure that, Mark, in your view, we have those numbers right. We repeat them again in a couple of places. But I just want to make sure that you're comfortable that those numbers are accurate.
They do look accurate, Chuck.
Okay.
anybody
So-
else have any comments? Okay. We
All right.
can move on to revenue then.
Revenue. So the projection is kind of stock language. The only change has been the 26% number that Mark provided the update for. The projected revenue section, the table is new as of 3 days ago or 2 days ago when I sent out the version 10. It just shows the various categories of revenue broken down by general fund and enterprise funds. And the total in red at the bottom matches the first paragraph or first sentence under the header above.
Hey, Chuck,
Yes.
I have just a question on the third paragraph in the revenue section. where we talk about the town has levied taxes at only 26% of its taxing capacity. I think it might be helpful for the reader if we just added a sentence of how taxing capacity is defined.
Okay,
So I'd leave it up to one of you guys to put in a sentence or, you know, an interjection in that sentence. I mean, how to say the town has only levied taxes 26% of its taxing capacity, notwithstanding Prop 2.5, you know, a knowledgeable reader might say, well, how the town could raise taxes another 74%, right?
Yes, that can only be tapped into, Hector, as you point out correctly, through an override. So I will
Right.
add a sentence there describing what taxing capacity means.
But just in a sentence, Mark, how would you describe taxing capacity?
It's the additional taxing authority that the town has subject to voter approval.
The so the additional authority based on the value, the aggregate value of properties, assessed values.
Yes, yep, that's what it is. It's, we could tax, you know, up to 2.5% of our total assessed valuation, which is over $21 billion. So the
Right.
tax levy could be as high as several $100 million.
Yeah.
And
Maybe maybe tax capacity, that could, there's some room at the bottom of the page. Maybe the definition can be put in a footnote.
okay,
That would just be my thought. Thank you.
that's a good idea. Thank you.
all right.
Hello, this is Wendy. I just wanted to let you know I was the 978 number.
Thank
No,
you.
we saw you check in. Thank you.
Yes, I was having trouble on my phone. Just on a side note, before I forget, I wanted to just mention one thing that happened to me over the last week. In some of Katuitt, the taxes have gone up 30%. And I guess some of the people in Katuitt have complained to the tax assessor and about the rate and why it has gone up. I guess there's various neighborhood codes that would make various neighborhoods go up as opposed to others. But I did want to mention that I guess the tax assessor told one of my neighbors that the tax rate was set by the finance committee.
It is not.
Exactly.
No, it's not.
So I
So
would appreciate if someone would let the tax assessor know not to relay that kind of information.
I'll check on that, Wendy.
That would be helpful. And it'd be curious to understand how they pick and choose the various neighborhoods to tax higher and lower.
All based
I
on
was-
sales data.
Census data? Okay.
Sales data.
Oh, sales
Real
data.
estate sales data. Yeah, and usually your waterfront properties, those types of neighborhoods will have seen significant increases in their assessed values, which has resulted in the significant increase in the taxes. And it's based on the sales data. Waterfront
Okay.
property was very strong. People are paying a lot of money for stuff. And if that's what happens when, you know, some people in the waterfront sell their homes for large sums of money, it raises everybody's value by that.
Okay, that's good to know. I don't know if there are tons of people that have sold their homes on this one particular street, but it's good to know that that's done in a systematic way.
Yeah, but Wendy, I would ask the question, the assessor used the word zones. What was that? What did that pertain to?
I guess there's neighborhood codes,
Codes?
codes, CODES. And
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
I was not aware how the taxes got calculated that in
Yeah.
depth like before.
And the codes, Mark, are linked to census? data?
No, the codes are linked to data, sales data.
Okay,
And so I think, we're getting off topic here, but
right.
if we want to bring the Director of Assessing in for a future CPAC meeting, we certainly
That
can
would
do
be
that.
great.
And
I think
maybe
that's a
that,
great idea.
Yeah.
I'd like to give him a piece of my mind. No, just kidding.
If you don't mind, could we sort of
Ba-
stay on
ba-
stay on the draft, please?
Yep, okay.
Having put that on the future, on the projected revenue for fiscal year 2024, it says in the second sentence, this is a 6.3% increase over the approved FY 2023 operating budget. I think this is going to confuse people because later on we're going to show a 6.4% increase in the general fund. Is there a way we can clarify that this is the enterprise plus general fund that's going up 6.3?
that's what the first sentence
Well,
says
that's what
here.
it says in the first sentence. of-
Right, it's the second sentence that says operating budget. Is
But
that
the
cool?
first sentence defines operating budget.
Why don't you just say a 6.3% increase over the comparable amount in fiscal 2023?
Is that true?
That does seem to be true.
Well, why would we need the word comparable? Why can't we just say that it's an increase over the amount of the
Yeah.
2023?
I'm just trying to respond to Neil's comment, but I'm
Well,
fine with the
No,
sentence
I
the way
don't think
it
we
is.
need, I actually don't think we need the word comparable because
Okay,
by comparing it to 2023, it is comparable. Okay. Does everybody
Or,
think that's okay?
or we could just say this is a 6.3% increase over the FY 23 operating budget.
I think we're back to what is the operating budget?
It's
Yeah.
the general fund plus the 9 enterprise funds.
Right.
And where is that defined? I mean, to me, it was confusing because I think we're going to end up with showing 6.4% in the next section. And we're going to call that general fund. So we've got multiple. Yes, that sounds good. Thank you, Mark.
All right.
Capital F, yeah, there you go. Yeah, that makes it is that okay?
Great.
Looks good
It's
to me.
clear.
hey, Mark, are you able to make the page any larger that
Sure.
you're showing on the screen?
It's
that
pretty
better?
big.
That's
that
better,
better?
thank you.
So the next 3 paragraphs are just commentary on some of the more substantive line items in the table.
I think it looks fine.
And I agree with Mark. I do appreciate Mark making the suggestion because I think it adds a lot more meat to the report that
Well,
candidly was
it
better.
clarifies it so that there's
Yep.
there's no confusion.
Yep.
I have a comment on the first paragraph on the top of page 5. The 4th line down, representing chapter 70 aid for education. I know that we defined chapter 70 later in the document. Chapter 70 aid is is designated for public education. Is that right, Mark?
No, it is not.
Yes, chapter 78 is for education, but it goes to the town.
Right,
And not to the school committee or the school department, it goes to the town. But
right.
it is specifically developed by the state of Massachusetts to help fund education at the local level.
Right. But where I'm headed with the question is, I know that in Mark, in your recent reworking of the numbers that obviated the need for a debt exclusion vote this fall, you said it was because this chapter 70 aid to the town went up, I think you said by $10 million, and $6 million of it went to the
It's
state,
6
to
million, yeah.
education.
Yeah, it went up by $6 million, which is what the school department budget went up by. So therefore, we didn't have to dedicate any more new property taxes to the school department budget because the entire increase was covered by that increase in chapter 78. So now we can
Right.
take property taxes and redirect them to some other area of the budget. And we did by putting it into the capital program.
Okay. Would it be clearer in that sentence to drop the words "for education"? Because chapter 70 aid is aimed for education.
Yep, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Would it be even clearer if we said it was largely representing the state of Massachusetts chapter 70 aid,
Sure.
that you knew where it was coming from?
Yep. Chapter
What was it?
70 aid from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, something like that.
The state of Massachusetts, or the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Chapter 70 aid from the state. Yeah.
From the state.
Yeah. Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
that's good.
That's
Thank you.
clear.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
And then if you can scroll down to the last paragraph on that page, the section "A concern." I need to remember what I did here. Change, yeah. Barnstable General Fund. Aid. Oh, okay. So this is truly an editorial nit, but I was always taught that when you use a number in a text up through 10, that you spell out the number, and then anything over 10, you use the number. So in the second line, the town received just 4 years ago. And this appears just a couple of other times in the document. I would spell out the word "for."
I'm going to agree with you, Hector, and I'm going to change it to 2 because it was 2 years ago that we
Okay.
actually.
All right, thank you for that. All right.
I had it highlighted.
I have a question. Why do we need the word Why is it a concern? Why isn't it just concern? It looks weird. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? All right, let's move on to the general fund. Jackie?
Yes. Okay, so the general fund is viewed as sources of revenue, which the town collects to offset its expenses. And of the total operating budget of 241 million, the general fund encompasses 196.5 million, which the town needs to generate. The FY 2024 budget is up by 6.4%. And the increase has been generated from property taxes, which are 5.4 million, and the state chapter 78. The summary, the general fund revenue sources shows a summary of the sources for the general fund listed in the table, showing property taxes as the major revenue earner. I could list the others: intergovernmental, Chapter 70, motor vehicle taxes. One of the things I noted was that the percent change of the intergovernmental Chapter 78 was 22.5%, which is larger than any of the other increases that's shown on the table, even though we've been saying that the taxes have been the largest source of revenue.
Can I just make a comment on the table, Jackie?
Yes, sir.
The first two lines under the dollar change, the numbers 5.4 are in bold. Is there a reason for that? I would I would take the bolding off for the 5.4. Yeah, both of those. And then one other, just a true nit. I take it the left column budget FY23. Oh, no, I withdraw the comment. This is in rank order for budget fiscal year 24, starting with 143.9 for property taxes. That's the order in which these items are listed. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. That's all I have for the table. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's an increase of 6.4%, of fiscal change of $11.8 million for the resources that need to be generated for the town. And we can go on to the other page where, yeah, the property taxes. Property tax increases will benefit from the proposed development of Vineyard Wind, which calls for an annual payment of $1.53 million to the town. And I think that's that for that one. Then on expenditures.
Jackie, sorry, can I make a comment on the last paragraph, the top paragraph on that page? Just a couple of nits. One is Vineyard Wind, the formal entity name is Vineyard Wind, LLC. So that's the company name. That's the entity that will be paying the town the money. So I would ask that you put LLC in there. And then on line 4, the combination of property taxes and a host community payment. In the host community agreement, the payments are called HCA payments, or host community agreement payments. So I would like to suggest that we use the defined term host community agreement and then the word payment there.
And would that be capitalized as well?
Yeah, host community agreement is capitalized and payment would not be. And the short form is HCA payments. And then after that phrase, I would reverse the order where it says the latter represents the annual difference between property taxes paid and 1.534 million. It should read the annual difference between 1.534 million and actual property taxes paid. The way the agreement is written, it starts with the 1.534 million that's payable, but that's reduced by any property taxes that Vineyard Wind has to pay to the town.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then HCA payments. Thank you for that, Mark. And then the next sentence, the host community agreement payments have been dedicated to the management of our public water system. I've never heard that before, Mark. Was there a formal decision made by the town council to earmark
Yes.
the HCA
Was-
payments?
A couple of years ago, there was a vote to establish a new stabilization fund and dedicate these HCA payments to the water, our public water system.
So when you say public water system, we're talking about drinking water.
Drinking water, yep, the town managed drinking water.
Okay.
You want to get a little more clarity on what it's being dedicated to?
Well, again, I think people might be confused. They see, a lot of people think the HCA payments are going to cover the costs of the sewers. And here we're saying HCA payments are dedicated to, not to sewers, but to the water system.
Yep.
So I just think maybe a little clarification there.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I have just a quick question. Are the areas that are affected by the Vineyard Wind utilizing the town water supply, or are they in different districts?
If I'll take a crack at that, I don't think Vineyard Wind is utilizing the water supply to any extent at all.
No, I mean, just are the people that are affected by the area that Vineyard Wind is in, are they utilizing the town water supply, or do they have their own districts?
That's a good question,
That's
because
a good question because the Vineyard Wind will affect part of COMM as well.
right, and part of
And
West
that happens,
Barnstable,
and that's a different water system from the Hyannis.
and part of West Barnstable too, if I'm not mistaken, which is its own water district.
Well,
It's probably something that was voted on by the town council at some point.
Mhm.
But it might be something that we just want to present them as a question. Maybe it's better utilized to go to the sewer system as opposed to the town water supply. I don't know the answer to that question.
that's a good point. Maybe we can discuss it in committee after all this is over.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's a good point.
Okay, and then my last comment on the last line in this paragraph, I would change that to, as the company continues to build out its infrastructure. Build out maybe the Vineyard Wind infrastructure, maybe that would be.
Well, it's repetitive.
Well, you're using the word twice, but
Yeah, it's not necessary to use it twice. As it continues to build out its infrastructure.
okay,
And that refers to the Vineyard Wind.
I'm okay with that.
I'm not sure we need to.
Build out its,
And just take out Vineyard Wind.
yeah, that'll
Yeah,
do.
that works.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything in expenditures?
Jackie, did you have any comments on the expenditures side?
Oh, yes, expenditures, there's an extra space between Vineyard Wind and the $39,000.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Okay, under expenditures shows the general fund is allocated to education at 42%, fixed costs at 34%, and municipal costs at 24%. it is further broken down to show that fixed costs are allocated to pensions, debt service, and school assessments. Any comments there?
No,
You're still in the expenditure section?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I was just, Mark, I wanted to ask a question about the Vineyard Wind HCA payments. So the way the document reads, in the first year, the town was to have received $640,000 in an HCA payment. Did we receive that last year?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Okay. And there was no, and that was just the HCA payment. There was no reduction for property taxes in the last fiscal year because there were no property taxes assessed. But this is this upcoming year, fiscal year 24, there will be a property tax assessed of 39,000 and change.
No, that was the FY 23 property tax bill, 39,000. Fiscal year
Okay,
24, it's going to be significantly higher.
okay. All right, so in fiscal 22, there was no
Fiscal
property
22, it had
tax.
no property tax bill. Fiscal year 22, 0 property taxes, and they made a $640,000 post
Right.
community.
Okay, great, thank you. That's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
You're welcome.
any other questions or comments about the expenditure section? Okay, we can move on then to the summary.
The summary over the years, the town of Barnstable's general fund budgets have reflected true fiscal responsibility, hence its AAA rating, consistent AAA rating. And the FY 2024 budget is also true to the same.
I have a question, Jackie, in that in that second paragraph where you talk about the the impact of the economy on our budget.
Mhm.
Do you have any comment about the impact of the continuing uncertainty of the economy that might impact on future general fund budgets?
No, there is no real uncertainty that we can't say for sure that there is any uncertainty. Just like it says, it's an evolution, it's evolving from the pandemic. So
No, I understand that, but we are now in an economy that is also uncertain because there might be an economic slowdown and we have continuing inflation. So the question I was asking you is what you think all these two very big factors might have in impacting the future of the general fund.
I don't think that we're in a slump or we're heading towards one. I think we're actually heading out of it. So I think this is more of a cautionary statement than actually something that's really true.
I'm
So I
not
don't.
sure. I'm not sure that we're coming out of a slump, but I'm just asking you a question whether we need to address the current economic situation and inflation.
Personally, I don't think we need to. I don't think it shows based on the increase, the largest increase that there has been on the table so far has shown that fiscal year 24, there is a larger increase. So I don't think it's truly relevant.
And do you,
suppose-
may I just complete
Sure.
this thought here? As we increase the possibility of debt service in our fixed costs, that will definitely impact the amount that would be available for general fund, do you think?
Yes, that they are fixed costs. Yeah,
I would agree with that, Lily. And I would also say that the cost of goods that we have to purchase and pay contractors would probably go up with inflation as well.
Yeah, the reason I asked that, Jackie, is because the other parts of this report in their summary point out to the cost of manpower, the inflation, and I just thought that this would be you would be keeping with what the comments of the other
yeah,
drafts.
we could do that.
Could,
We could absolutely use,
Lillian, would it
inflation.
help if in the last sentence, in the second paragraph, that starts from a pandemic to an endemic, if we said the budget reflects continued variability and uncertainty associated with changes in interest rates, inflation, and the rate of economic recovery?
Well, the budget does reflect that, but what I'm asking is, for example, the police department and the schools and DPW, all these reports all talk about the cost of labor, inflationary factors, the difficulty of staffing, and I just thought that it would be possibly appropriate to include that in the general fund projections as well.
I think so. I think it would show consistency.
Yeah. So could you draft something?
So I would take out which is evolving from a pandemic to an endemic.
Where are you?
It's,
The second,
yeah, yeah. As we continue this slowly emerge from the effects of the pandemic, the FY 2024 budget reflects the continued variability in our, I think, and uncertainty, well, associated with changes in interest rate, inflation, and the rate of economy.
yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense for 24. The point I'm asking you is looking forward
Mhm.
beyond 24, let's say next year, what do we need to look for? What are the challenges of both the economy, the difficulty in finding staffing, our debt service, and all of that will have on our future general fund?
Um,
Because all
I
I'm
think
saying is that it's reflected in the other portions of this report.
based on what, based on my limited understanding, I think that the CWMP will have more of an impact than it will have more of an impact on the CWMP than, and the general fund will perhaps be divided between both of them, trying to compensate for that large amount of expenses that the town will foresee. So I'm not sure that I would attribute it to the inflation or employment or those things. I think I would attribute it to the new project that we're taking on.
Jackie, I think what Lillian's trying to point out is that all those factors will be the underlying contributors towards the increase in cost to all projects, including the CWMP.
Right.
Am I correct in that assumption, Lillian?
Yes.
So I think maybe more of a broad statement,
Yeah,
just,
yeah. If you, Jackie, if you have read Neil's draft and Chris's draft and my drafts, you will
Mhm.
notice that we talk about the possibility and the challenges that we face going forward. So I was just asking you whether you would like to incorporate that same challenge in your summary.
Yes, I would.
So could you write it?
Um, right now, Lillian, I'm in my car in a parking lot.
Oh, you're like Chuck. Chuck's in his car too.
I'm in the Home Depot parking lot in Boston. I pulled over in order to do this meeting.
Well, maybe we can make some suggestions for Jackie.
Yes, we could.
That might
Yeah.
be helpful.
Maybe
Yes.
Lillian, you could draft a sentence or two.
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. And how would we get, I guess I'm not gonna draft it right now because I need to think about it. But
Right.
I raised that question because I think the general fund is such an important component of this total budget that we need to address that.
Okay. I agree.
So.
It
So
sets
when
the
you,
tone.
let me just suggest this, if it's okay with you. When you
Yes.
get back to town, if you would draft something and send it to me,
I
and
will.
then we can both wordsmith it and send it to Chuck.
Okay.
You just send it to me, Lillian, because if
Okay.
he
Okay,
agrees,
send
we
it to
can-
Mark.
I can finalize this report and send it out to the town council with that added language.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Is that okay with everybody? I don't want
Sounds
it
good to
I
me.
don't want it to just be my feeling about this. I just think that the general fund is such a major component of the budget. We need to address that.
No, I think that's a great idea. And I think if you just submit your comments or language to Mark, then that
Okay.
will probably do it.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Anything else of the general fund?
That's it.
Thank you.
Lillian, what time, how late is too late to talk with you this evening?
You want to speak to me personally or you want to email me?
Oh, you want me to email the information to
Yes,
you?
yes. Email
Okay.
me your draft.
I will email it to you and to Mark.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right. Moving on to the school department, which
Well,
is
I have a comment on a couple of comments on the summary section. Underneath expenditures. The second sentence, a measured informed expansion of programs and fiscal prudence. The word have should be has.
where are you?
Where are you?
I'm in the first paragraph in summary. Over the years, has, and then down below, change the word have, and has contributed. Yeah.
The measure.
And then in the third paragraph, you've got too many uses of the word manage. Reflect prudent decisions to closely manage hiring and manage discretionary spending. I think you can get rid of the second manage there. Thank you. Okay, I'm done with that.
Are we done? Are we done with general fund? Okay. Moving on to this really comprehensive and well-researched school section.
Well, let me take Chuck's recommendation and open it up as Mark kind of scrolls through for people's changes. There are two changes I would point out from the last I think version 8 and 9 to 10, which is the school. Chris Dwelly and Sarah Hearn had some very good feedback. And one of the things that came up that I had missed was actually in the details, second paragraph, where it turns out that almost 10% of the new staff being added are on grants. And what I didn't know is that almost 10% of the staff is actually funded by grants and not by the school budget. So that changed, and it makes it a little bit more complicated to read. The other thing is relative to special education, or as the town refers to it as students with disabilities, which is 17% of the student population. Chapter 70 only deals with about 4% of that. But as Mark made me aware, there are tons of other programs from the federal government and circuit breaker and otherwise that actually fund a good deal of the 17% minus 4% of the other students with disabilities. So we changed that based upon Sarah's input. So I thought that was very, very useful in terms of sharing the draft with them and then getting feedback. But with that introduction, I would open it up to questions from the group.
I just have one under details, line 5. You start a sentence with the number 4, and I think we decided that we're going, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My comment on this section, I agree with Lillian's intro that this is a cut above in terms of the quality of the analysis. For me, and I'm not that up on education policy or trends, but it really jumps out from your analysis, Neil, that the additional resources that are going into English language learning and economically disadvantaged categories, and that really jumped out at me, especially in from K through 4, as this chart on the bottom of page 8 shows. So hats off to you, Neil, for really digging into this and coming up with some excellent analysis of an area that takes up the second largest amount of spending in the town. So thank you for this.
Well, thank you. But I do need to give credit for the people who made it possible. I mean, Sarah and Kristen and Chris, plus Mark, in just were very, very open with their time and answering questions, because this is an amazingly complex area. And as many of you may know, Barnstable's test scores aren't the best on the Cape. So it's kind of like it's a real interesting problem that the town is dealing with in terms of funding education, which is much bigger than the school budget. But other questions or observations? That's a good one.
Well, I think you've done a great job, Neil. It's really made us understand how complex the school's task is.
Well, Mark said we should try to.
I've discovered about Neil is that once you point him in a direction, just get out of his way. he will do it. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, I also like some of the formatting changes, like these boxes in blue ink surrounded by hyphens. It really calls out some of the topics that and some of the trends that taxpayers ought to be aware of.
I particularly like your section on thinking beyond 24, because I think that's very, very relevant for all of us to consider. And I think it will be very helpful to town council as well as town leadership. Thank you.
My pleasure. And again, the people doing the job were the people who made it possible to actually pull this together. Because I knew nothing about Barnstable education before I started this.
Yeah, and they're all new too.
On page 14, a couple of editorial nits.
Yes.
Where it says inflation, and then down below it says recommendation, we use the word continuance. Would continuation be a better word, Lillian? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I would agree with you, Hector, on that one.
Yeah. And then,
Right here, continuance.
yeah,
Continuation,
yeah.
yeah.
Continuation. And then in the next, I'll let you finish that. And then in the next recommendation bullet down below, mitigate any, I found myself inserting the word future decreases in state aid, just to make it crystal clear.
Good point.
But other than that, I thought it was excellent.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you, Neil. Chris?
Yeah, I don't think there were any changes to the DPW section from our last meeting. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions or concerns with anything there. I know we had gone over it at the last meeting.
I don't have any concerns, but one of the things I liked, Chris, that you did in this section is you flagged the personnel issues. And I've been hearing that from a lot of people around town. 25 job vacancies. That's amazing.
Yeah, it definitely stood out. There's a huge number of vacancies for that department specifically.
What is the total FTEs for the DPW? Do you know that offhand? It can't be more than 100 people, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't have it right in front of me right now, but it's, yeah, definitely.
It's about 150 last I looked.
Yeah.
150.
When you
I've
count all
also-
their operations, including their enterprise funds, it's over 100. Yep.
Over
Yeah.
100. So damn near 20% of the department is represented by open vacancies.
Do we know if there's a specific reason for that?
Well, I think, Chris, I'll let you answer that, but I think it has a lot to do with the contracts, the union.
Yeah, the
contracts.
union collective bargaining and the pay that's being offered isn't competitive with the private sector at the moment was
Right.
one of the major things that was cited.
Right. And did I see somewhere that other municipalities are paying more for similar jobs?
I believe the benefits are better in a lot of other towns
Benefits,
as far as
yeah.
health insurance. I think the pay is more or less the same.
Yeah.
But the benefits are better in a lot of other towns.
Yeah.
So Mark, when that happens, when our benefits are lower, do you find that the amount of salaries you have to pay to be higher?
Sometimes in some cases, yes, but remember, not everybody takes health insurance from the town. So there's quite a bit of our workforce does not take our health insurance. We have it through a spouse or some other arrangement.
Do you have a percentage of how many do take our health insurance? Just, you don't have to have a specific number, just an
Yeah, off the
idea.
top of my head, I think it's a little more than half our workforce.
Yeah.
Ah,
Almost half our workforce doesn't take health insurance with it.
Wow.
But it could mean the other half, it would be significant too.
Yeah.
Well, it
one of the
certainly has an
think about-
effect, yeah, with some
Yeah.
people.
Also, if we were to, increase the health insurance contribution, how many of our existing workforce that currently don't take it would jump on the town's health insurance plan and that under those circumstances? So it's something we have to be cognizant of as well.
Right, it's a balancing act. Yeah,
Generally, I think our salaries are very competitive, if not better than most, because of that.
okay, that was my original question. That's great.
A lot of the vacancies we see in DPW right now are the laborer type of positions. And, those we're competing against like landscape companies and organizations like that. And it's just, that's tough. Those are tough positions to find. And a lot of it has to do with housing.
Yes, the huge problem, yeah.
Yeah.
Mark, do you know what percentage of the town's labor force or DPW's labor force lives off the Cape?
I don't, Hector.
Be
It's something
interesting to
you have to look at. Yeah. I'm sure human resources probably has those types of statistics.
yeah. That might be something to look at some point. The police, the police officers, are they required to live in the town of Barnstable?
No, but they're required to live within a certain mile radius from the border of the town of Barnstable.
Okay.
So some police officers who live in the western side of town, I forgot what the mile, it's 10 or 15 miles, but it actually reaches over the bridge into Plymouth if you live on
Yeah.
the western side of town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But other departments don't have that.
No,
Requirement.
no, nothing like that in any other department.
Okay.
Okay, can we return to the Public Works, and are there any other comments? Thanks, Chris.
Not a problem.
Now, CWMP was originally Jackie's, and because it was incorporated into the enterprise funds, I think that Chuck put these three paragraphs together. Is that right, Chuck?
I did. And then we had a number of comments in the couple of subcommittee meetings. So I think the way this is written now reflects all of the comments that were offered up through our last meeting.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it covers everything that it's a good explanation.
I had a comment in the first paragraph, the last sentence, starting the costs specifically associated with managing the CWMP are tracked separately within the enterprise fund so that they can be easily identified. Is that what you mean to say, Chuck?
Yes, that's fine. Yep.
Yeah. I wasn't sure what it pertained to, but and then in the second paragraph, the reference to a capital outlay of $135,000. Having just beaten my brains out on the CWMP capital budget, what's the capital outlay in the operating budget, Mark?
It's a couple of vehicles and some computers.
Okay, all right.
Any other comments? Corrections? Okay. Chris, Police Department?
All right, the police department section largely unchanged. I did add a reference to the open positions in that department as well, based on what Mark had told us at the last meeting, that there were 10 open positions at that time. Again, I don't believe there's any other changes to the section from our last meeting. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions or anything.
No, I think it's very clearly done, and
I was struck by the decline, almost 9% decline in operating expenses. So Chris, that just reflects the fact that in 2023, they spent on safety equipment and some training that they didn't repeat? for the
Yeah,
next
there were
fiscal year?
adjustments to the costs of, utilities and gasoline, and also some funding that was allocated for training that was not needed, not used.
Ah,
So that's why that has that reduction.
okay,
And if we end up with another group of new hires going into a police academy, there'll
Yeah.
be a supplemental appropriation for those training costs, and that'll come back to the FY24 budget, increasing it.
yeah.
But
Okay,
that's the
thanks.
biggest reason for the reduction in the operating expenses is the training costs associated with new recruits that we hired in fiscal year 23. And we don't put those in the police department's base budget because we don't know when the next available academy will occur and how many slots we'll have in it.
Right,
So
Hmm.
we always bring supplementals forward to the town council when we hire the next round of officers and send them to an academy.
Any other comments or changes?
the top of the next page, there's some yellow shading, the departments, is that is that there for a reason?
Yes, that was my question. I just wanted to ask Mark. There was conversation during the interview about the civil service requirement, but I wasn't sure if is that the department's civil service requirement, the town's civil? I just wanted to be clear about
Who's,
when it was mentioned that there are civil service requirements, who's setting the requirements? Is it just the department, or does the town have? So
It was originally the town of Barnstable decided that its police force would be part of the state of Massachusetts Civil Service. And in order to change that, we would have to negotiate that with the unions. And then subsequently, I believe it would take a vote of the town council to remove us from civil service.
So that would
So
have to
is
be
it-
negotiated first and then voted on by the town council after the fact.
Right. Yes,
So it's
So
a
is it-
multi-step process to change that.
yes, very lengthy. Yep.
Is the civil service requirement, is that an impediment to hire new people?
Does make it challenging, yes. Yes.
Yeah,
it is.
Chief Sonnenbend mentioned that as one thing contributing to difficulty in hiring.
right, so the point of my yellow highlight was to make sure the reader understands that either this is something that was imposed on them or that they chose to adopt. That's the only reason I had it in yellow.
It's been in place. Yeah, that's a good point, Chuck. We've been in civil service for decades.
Okay.
It's a decision made decades ago, even before we had a town council. I think when we were a town meeting form of government. I don't know exactly how many years, but it's been decades.
Got it.
So the civil service requirement, in response to Chuck's question, is a town set requirement. So should that sentence read by the town civil service requirement?
That's what I was getting at. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure if
I
it
think
should be
it's-
town, let's make it town.
I think it should be town, if I'm understanding Mark correctly.
Yeah, I would agree with that because I think putting department there implies that the department can unilaterally decide to change that,
Yeah,
which isn't
Yeah.
the case.
And maybe the word requirement should be replaced with participation. Exacerbated by the town service, and no, never mind. I don't like that
Yeah.
either.
Well, I think if it's a requirement, it's a requirement.
yeah.
I agree.
Currently is, yes.
All right, well, that was the only
That's
reason for
fine.
the yellow.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay,
Uh,
thank you, Chris.
I do have one more comment. The bottom paragraph of page 18. I don't have a specific suggestion but it says officers, by being present on campus, may de-escalate and quickly resolve internal situations. Is that the right word? Situations or internal situations? Do we mean fights?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of a general statement about things that
Yeah.
arise within the school, in
Yeah.
the student population. I believe I paraphrased that based on what it said on the police department's website.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have
Can
a
you,
specific.
can you reread it, Hector? I'm doing it on my phone, so I can't read.
Yeah, so in the last paragraph, Wendy, it starts off, it talks about the school resource operation officer program, and it says it's a critical component of community policing. And then it says, by being present on campus, officers may de-escalate and quickly resolve internal situations and also act as a deterrent to external threats.
Can you
And-
change internal situations just to conflicts?
Yeah, maybe just change,
Um,
that's a good suggestion.
Just
Quickly
because
resolve conflicts between students
Well,
or,
we don't know
or
what
just-
they are, so we.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of open-ended to what
I
may
think you
occur.
need to, I think you need to leave it as general as possible, because we
Right.
really don't know what that involves.
right. But I think if
Right.
you use conflicts instead of internal situations, that would be a little
Well,
less,
I think,
Well,
I think what Chris is trying to do is he has a parallel. He has the internal conflicts and the external threats.
I
so-
get that.
Yes,
I get-
exactly.
Okay, yes, that makes more sense.
So
So
I
you
think,
certainly can change it to conflicts, but I would keep internal there
yeah,
as
internal,
opposed to the external threats.
yeah. Because I think that makes that sentence much more powerful by having
Okay,
internal and external.
okay, that's good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anything else on the police? Okay, moving on to enterprise funds, which was mine. Everybody knows that enterprise funds are they charge their fees. And so I have the operating budgets. And below that, we have where they get their money, where they get their funding, which I think will be helpful to people so to know where it's coming from. Take, for example, HYCC is getting $1.4 million from the general fund. And the marina is going to get $30,000. The airport is going to get $50,000 from intergovernmental. So in addition to the fees that they charge for their services, there are other components for their funding sources. And I think it makes it very clear. I hope it does.
Yeah, I like that approach, Lillian.
Yeah. And then what I did to follow that up was to take each one of the 9 and describe it a little bit so that it would be clear in the narrative so that you could read about it, and then if you had questions, you could go back to the table.
In the paragraph starting solid waste in bold, Mark, can you go to that? Yeah, second sentence, the word especially trash. I think you want to delete the hyphen after especially. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
It came from my left hand. Thank you.
And then we have at the bottom, on the bottom paragraph, the water supply operating expenses are predominantly paid from user charges. This is, this harkens back to what I was asking about before about the dedication of HCA,
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
this trust
it's-
revenues.
You see the HCA money?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Trust revenue source. I can't remember what my comment was, but I just highlighted it. But at any rate, I think it's fine. That's good.
okay. Any other questions about it? Okay,
Oh, I do have one, under water pollution control.
yeah,
You have US EPA, all is one word, and I think you want to have a space there. It's the US EPA as opposed to the state EPA.
excuse me? You mean US,
Yeah, it's the
US,
US and
US,
US
right, I got
Environmental
it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cost associated. And then I had some other comments. Mark, can you scroll down a little bit? Yeah, all right, good. The sentence starting the Water Pollution Control Enterprise Fund, we need a couple of commas in there. The costs associated with the CWMP, the second sentence, comma, which includes salaries, benefits, da 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 da, comma, are provided for. Lillian, I know you're averse to commas, but I think those help clarify that, break up that sentence a little bit.
Yeah, there should be a comma after system.
And a comma before which. But otherwise, I thought that was fine.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Moving on to fixed costs, which is also mine.
Oh, I'm sorry. With the last paragraph in the enterprise section, the CFAX concludes, we don't need the apostrophe S there. There we go. Okay, thank
Oh,
you.
no. It wasn't supposed to be there.
That was your left hand running amok again.
You know, I'm gonna blame my hand surgery for the next 2 years. That was my left hand. You know, thank you for picking all these out.
Welcome.
Okay. If there are no other comments, let's move on to fixed costs. I do a narrative, and then I show you the funding sources for the fixed costs and the expenditures. And there really are no changes since the last time. I think all the numbers are right.
Okay, I do have a couple of nits and nats, and in just a question in the first
Yes,
paragraph. Sorry,
Go ahead.
in the first paragraph, it says that fixed costs have remained constant at 29 to 30% of the general fund budget, but are anticipated to account for 34% of fiscal 2024. And I found myself wondering why. Should we have a sentence of explanation there?
I think when you look at the expenditures, you will be able to see that.
So in the chart, the expenditures chart,
I think
yeah,
the employee benefits, for example,
okay,
went up.
So the
So-
biggest,
And
the biggest,
yeah, and
sorry.
we transfer money to the capital trust fund, don't forget.
right, that's the big delta.
That's a big one. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
big one. So,
Okay. Okay. Okay, that's fine.
okay,
And then 2 paragraphs down, we're starting the sources of revenue. To cover fixed costs. I would write the sources of revenue to cover fixed costs include taxes, intergovernmental aid, etc. And then the next sentence just repeats what's in the first sentence. So you can delete that next sentence. If I'm reading it right. Revenue sources include, you're just repeating, right?
yes.
Yeah,
Why
okay.
don't we just get rid of everything after,
Just get rid of the second sentence in that paragraph. That's all you need to do, because you've made that statement in the first sentence.
yeah, let's just, yeah, delete that second sentence.
Yep, that's all.
Good. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Moving down. We're done with the expenditures. We got the employee benefits. And how we fund the fixed costs.
Right.
And the important one, of course, is the $750,000 of new property that we add.
Okay.
Yeah. This is we started it in 23, but I think it's worth repeating because not everybody would have remembered it.
And then in the bottom paragraph in that section, we refer to the next 5 years using the number 5, and we should spell out 5.
Yes. It would be the
Where are
last
we?
paragraph,
It's-
second line.
Yeah,
in
the
the
next
middle of the
5
line.
years. 5, right, exactly right. Truly nits and gnats, but I had the benefit of just reading this fresh without having been enmeshed in the details.
Well, we really appreciate your eagle eyes and your editorial comments. Because
Lillian, I think this number of total transfers to the capital trust fund in FY 24 are projected to be 10,442,825. That doesn't agree with the table up here of 7,870,803. I would just suggest we change it to
yeah,
match
we
that.
need to just change that. Yeah. Thank you. What we discovered in our 10 versions is that no matter how many times you proofread it, it's not enough. There are still errors in there. Anything else for fixed costs? Okay, we're now go to looking ahead, which is Chuck.
In
So,
that first paragraph, there are 2 number 5s that should be changed to FIFE, rolling 5-year.
Right. And then the 5-year budget.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chuck.
No, Hector, there's no reason for me really to read through this. We've seen this version before, so I'm just open to comments on the looking ahead section.
Yeah. I thought it was well done.
Yeah, I think so too.
I do have a question there. There are a couple of references to debt overrides, debt exclusion override. There's one in the fixed cost section at bottom paragraph, page 24. And it sort of says, override, debt exclusion override would mitigate fixed cost debt service. Debt exclusion referendum remains a town council decision. Then Chuck, you refer to debt exclusions again, and that CFAC is concerned that this issue might come back to us.
Mhm.
Have we been as direct as we feel we should be about the possibility of debt overrides, debt exclusions, votes?
Would you restate what you asked, please?
I guess, I mean, we have a couple of sort of indirect warnings, if I may, about debt exclusion overrides and referendums, and then Chuck, wait a second. In the final sentence on page 25, it remains likely that the topic of an override may be on the radar screen. I don't know. It just seems to me like we're dancing around a topic and we're being kind of indirect. And I know it's kind of a hot potato topic, and it would be if the town council authorized a referendum, especially in view of the property tax increases that some folks have had to bear.
Well,
So I don't know if we want to be more direct about it. I don't have any specific language changes. I'm just commenting on the sort of the allusion to, this future issue that we may have to deal with. And I wanted to know, get the group sense whether we felt we should be more direct.
No, I don't think
Um,
it could be more direct than that. I think that what Chuck says, it remains likely that this is going to be an issue that we have to deal with.
Right.
Yes,
And
and
that-
and
Go ahead.
Mark, maybe you can elaborate on that, because I think maybe alternatives are being discussed, as well as, debt exclusion. Is that correct?
Well, what's happened most recently is with the additional chapter 78 that we received.
How
as I
much was
stated,
that again?
$6 million. $6 million
$6 million.
increase in chapter
Okay.
78. So
Okay.
essentially what that allowed us to do was to take some of our property tax levy increase for next year and redirect it towards the capital program, and more specifically to the CWMP. And so that's by $2 million. And so by adding, and that's an annual commitment to the capital program of $2 million in additional dollars. And if we dedicate that to the CWMP, we buy ourselves a couple of more years before we need to make that next decision. If everything else stays the same as we currently know it, when we get to the next round of projects, I think in fiscal year 2027, we're not going to have enough recurring revenue sources to pay for the debt service on those projects. So we're back to a debt exclusion override discussion. But a lot of things could happen in the next couple of years, more state aid, more federal aid, perhaps to the state revolving loan fund, larger subsidies, construction costs. Maybe they'll start going back and trending positively for us. Technology could change, and there could be alternatives to public sewering. There's just a lot of variables. And so we're looking at this in 5-year increments on an annual basis.
Do you have an idea when you'll find out about the Centerville grant that you applied for?
I don't know what the timing of the award notification for that would be.
Remind me what that grant is.
It was a congressionally dedicated grant application. So meaning that, Senator Warren's office reached out to us and asked us if there was a specific project or two that the town of Barnstable would like them to try to achieve a direct grant funding for.
Uh-huh.
Earmark. It's an earmark. We're trying
Right.
to get a congressional earmark in
Right.
the budget. And so we gave them that project. $31 million project.
Excellent.
And that went, the town council just approved the appropriation and borrowing authorization for that project as part of our FY24 CIP.
Uh-huh.
If that grant, if materializes, then we'll never have to borrow that money. We can rescind that borrowing authorization because the federal grant will pay for it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But we'll probably hear by the end of this calendar year whether or not we receive it.
Huh. So Warren, typically, she's among the people who probably rail against earmarks, but since they're available, she's doing her job and trying to find some for her constituents in Barnstable, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they'd go to some southern state.
Yeah,
Right?
and don't forget, she's probably reaching out to every Massachusetts community for the same reason, so.
Yeah. Chuck, I think that last sentence, however, it remains likely that the top of an override may be on the radar screen. I think if you just rephrase that, however, the topic of an override may be on the radar screen. Just take out the words, it remains likely that.
Yep, I think that's fair.
That's
Where
a
are
little
we,
bit
Hector?
more, it's a little
Scroll
less
down, Mark.
wishy. Oh, yeah, so the bottom of page 25, Mark, sorry.
The
Oh, sorry.
no, second paragraph on 26, last sentence. However,
Yeah.
and get rid of
Delete, it
it remains
remains
likely
likely that.
Do we
Can-
want to use the word topic or do we want to use the word issue?
Issue is fine. Yeah, issue is probably more, it's less wishy-washy than topic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we're gonna say, however, the issue of an override may be on the
Maybe.
radar screen after 2024.
due to the scope of the CWMP and associated costs. I think that's better. That's a little less indirect. It's less wishy-washy. And I think, the committee is doing its job by pointing out that, the override may come back. And so be aware.
Yes, I think,
Based upon what Mark distributed about 2 meetings ago in his analysis, which I think he just reiterated earlier, isn't it 2027 would require the override based upon the reapplication of how you move the tax money? So I think we can be more, I don't think it's after fiscal year 2024. I think it's after fiscal year 2026, based upon what we know now.
That's fine. If that's accurate, Mark. So you
okay.
said it bought us
Couple of years.
2 years of time, right?
Yes. So we'd have to deal with it in 2027.
Right.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Then you've got the section on staffing, inflation, interest rates, and water.
That's all good,
They're all good. The acknowledgements are good.
except for the number 3 should be words following 3 individuals. Sorry.
You're consistent, that's for sure.
I had good English teachers in 2nd grade.
They made an impression.
Yeah.
They did.
And I reread E.B. White's Elements of Style from time to time. So guys, I thought this
Okay.
was just a great job.
Yes.
Thank you for all the hard work.
So, Lillian, procedurally, given the need to add the sentence earlier in the general fund, which I think is the only thing that's a TBD here,
That's
can
correct.
we approve this report tonight
Yes, we-
in this meeting?
I'm getting ready to ask for a motion.
Okay, well, I'll make the motion, subject to the additional clarification on challenges that we talked about earlier being added to the report that we accept.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the CFAC operating budget report for fiscal 2024. Chuck, will you call the roll, please?
I will. Lillian,
Yes.
Hector,
Absolutely.
Jackie? Wendy,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes, sir.
Chris,
Yes,
and Chuck is yes. So
Well,
it's unanimous.
It's unanimous. Thank you all very much. This was a big effort. And Chuck,
Thank you.
thank you, Chuck, for all your many, many hours of consolidating, formatting, editing, and patiently listening to us.
Lillian,
Good
I'm pretty sure that when we got to about version 7, thank you wasn't the phrase you had in mind, but you're welcome.
No, it was version 10, actually. But thank you very much.
My
So
pleasure.
I'll work that language into the final report once I receive it from Lillian and Jackie.
Okay,
And I'll send this report out to the town council and the town manager.
thank you very much.
Thank you,
Great.
Mark.
Is there any other business to come before the committee?
Well, should we talk about upcoming meetings and what we'll do?
I'm getting ready for that.
Yeah.
Our next meeting is June 12th, and we're getting ready to put together our annual financial overview report. So if you all have a copy of last year's, you can look at it. If you don't have one, I believe it's on the CFAC website to see what we do. We do this this profile of our finances. And I
So
think,
I'm actually on the CFAC website, and Mark, I see fiscal 19 and fiscal 20 CFAC annual report, but I don't see the later ones.
do you have an extra one from last year, Hector?
I have printed copies, yeah. But
Okay, well,
I'm just saying they're not on the website if anybody's going to
I
find.
thought they were.
Yeah,
So-
I think they are. That's where I got mine.
CFAC annual report, the latest one I have is fiscal 20.
Under financial overview reports, Hector,
It's a financial
Okay.
overview.
Okay, hold on one second.
20, 21, and 22.
Got
are
it,
there.
got it,
There you
got
go.
it. Sorry, all right. I was lost
Yeah.
the term. Okay,
So Chris, if you go to the CFAC website, you can pick up a copy of that.
yep,
If you
will
want
do.
if you want a hard copy, you can ask Hector, because he just owned up that he's got lots of them.
I don't have lots, but I do have 3 or 4.
Okay.
Happy to send one to you, Chris.
I will let you know.
All right.
Lillian, we also have the upcoming election of officers.
Oh, we do. Oh, that's right. It's in June, isn't it?
Yeah, we can do that either in the first or the second meeting in June, whatever your
Well,
preference.
whatever's the pleasure. Why don't we get it over with? We'll do it on June 12th.
I'd also like to put on the agenda why Hector felt he needed 4 copies of that annual report. So I'd got to get into that, but not right now. No, Hector, don't get into it now.
You mean
No.
why I didn't give away all 4?
Yes, no, we're not doing that tonight, but yes, I'd like it on the agenda.
Yes. Okay. Anything else? Thank you, everybody, for this really wonderful review of our report. And is there a motion to adjourn?
I move.
I second.
All righty, Lillian,
Seconded to adjourn, yes? Boy, you
Hector?
jumped on that really fast, Chuck.
Yeah,
I'm
yes.
sitting in a
Chuck.
parking lot, Lillian. I'm anxious to keep moving. Hector, yes.
Yeah,
Jackie? Okay, Wendy,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
and Chuck is yes.
Thank you very much.